we're going to hear from our first speaker, who is Shaun Brown. Well done, Shaun. Take it on.
Wow. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Simon, and thank you to every single one in here because you've contributed to this journey. It's been an emotional roller coaster, but thank you for inviting me on stage. So a little bit about me. As you may or may not know, I'm based in Sweden. I've literally kind of stumbled into property a few years back. It was quite interesting, but really not really from a professional standpoint. My reason why is because this little guy, he keeps me very, very busy. This is Jaden, my 6-year-old son, but he pushes me and keeps me disciplined and focused. Grew up in Sweden, as I mentioned. Typical upbringing, single mother. Joined a sports academy at the age of 10, which kind of disciplined me. And at the age of 16, moved to the US to pursue basketball, which was my passion. When I was done with that, I played professionally for about 5 minutes. And then I had to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, basically, because I've been on this one track my whole life. And really just stumbled into property and really thought it was really interesting. But I decided to take it a little bit more serious around 2013 and 2018 and bought my first property. But then in Sweden it's a little bit more traditional, so I decided to join Simon Zutshi's course last year. So a little bit about my strategy. My strategy mainly is a single tenant. I'm not really motivated by money per se, but it's really about creating something for the long term, as I mentioned. What I looked at was from a single tenant perspective, very basic. So whether it's a single let, HMO, or commercial, I'm looking at more a single tenant. And the reason for doing that is you can go in and negotiate a rate for long term and secure that for a longer base and adding value. And also one thing I learned, because I've been traveling back and forth for a couple of months, is that you need a strong internal power team. And what that is, you need people on the ground that you can work with that understands what it is you're trying to achieve, but also, just communicating and building relationships. And I think at the end of the day, that's why all of us are in this room. Relationships are key. Everyone in here has the tools, the skill set, the knowledge to be successful, but it's really about relationships, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with landlords, we're dealing with brokers, we're dealing with people, and people is what makes us take that natural next step. So that was key for me, and it took me about 7 months, in all honesty, before I realized that that's really when it turned for me, because this first 7 months were very challenging. I was working on some great deals and they fell through, and I just had to reevaluate everything I was doing. And luckily I had built a lot of relationships. I was doing a lot of viewings, like 5 a day when I was in here. So, it was tough in the beginning, but then it kind of took off. Talking a bit fast here. First case study. So this is a very basic HMO. So how this came about was basically, because I'd spent so much time doing a lot of really analyzing my area in Croydon, I'd on average about 5 to 25 viewings per week. So I knew immediately what a good deal looked like, and knew what rent we can charge, how much the renovation would be, and just basically putting a deal together. So this actually came up on Rightmove, and the funny thing is, when I started a year ago, these houses were going for about $475,000, $500,000. But because it was a dip in the market and a small window, immediately when this came about, I knew it was a good deal. So I acted very quickly. I called the agent. We went to view it with my architect, my builder. We did the costing. We put the offer in and got accepted, and the deal got done. So this was no magic. It's just a very basic deal, but it works. After refinancing, we're looking at leaving about $71,000 in the deal. This deal itself is going to give us about just shy over $4,000 net. And I have a JV partner on this deal, so it's a 50-50 split, but very basic. So it was one of my first deals that I liked, actually. My second deal, this came about, so the first 7 months I was working on a massive deal and it fell through, but subsequent to that, I was dealing with a lot of people, speaking with them, and the vendor's agent came to me and said, actually, I like the way you look and structure deals. So I have a few properties that I might want to show you. So we got in his car, we drove around, we looked at a few of his properties, and this was a block of 4 flats that was being renovated. And he basically said that, he was going to let it out, and I offered on it. He said no. And because of, I knew that there was, different options we could use. So I said, well, what about if I offer you to buy it and guarantee rent over a longer period of time? And he didn't really understand what that was. I explained to him. We sat down, we met a few times, but he basically, we agreed a purchase price and a guaranteed rent. Now, on this one, the rent is quite high. That's guaranteed to him, but that's still fine because it's still, for me, you can secure a good asset in a good location, and then within a few years' time, I can exercise that. So my results for the year, basically, I've done 6 purchases where 4 PLOs. I basically try to do everything. So the only thing I didn't do was rent to rents, but I just basically came in and was just trying to achieve as much as possible. So a single let, a HMO, and a large PLO. And in total, it's a decent year, but one thing I did want to mention about strategy. So as I mentioned earlier, my strategy has been a single tenant, and the difference between single tenants and basically doing ASTs is that, first of all, you can secure the revenue before you actually acquire the property, but also the beautiful thing is when you get a long-term lease, you get what's called you can sign an FRI lease, basically, so they're responsible for all the internal aspects of the house. And also, when you secure a rate, you can implement accelerators. So this is an example of between 2 to 4%, but if you look at year 1, 2%, this is the gross income from this one, and then each year it increases. So from a perspective of trying to raise finance and speaking to investors and going out there, and you can do this for anything, whether it's a single let, whether it's an HMO or a large property, you can show that you have secured the asset, and it's a little bit more security from an aspect. And the one thing I like about the single tenant approach is when you have a corporate tenant, which you can also get a lot of times, is that corporate tenant that leases your property actually guarantees the rent or the lease of the whole corporation. So that's a security from us landlords. So voids aren't really a big thing when you try to do that. Top tips. Be consistent, just believe in yourself. Don't be afraid to take that first step. Try and be consistent, and don't be afraid to fail. And as I mentioned, this isn't rocket science. I haven't done anything that anyone else here can't do. It's basically just buying a house and developing it, getting some tenants in it, and just repeating. What's next? Keep on building on relationships, because I think that's been key for me, speaking to people, letting everyone know what you do, going to networking events, and do at least 2 more JBs, and also looking to create an investment fund, which I've been working on in the background, which is quite exciting. And just grow the portfolio. That's basically it. Thank yous. Simon Zutshi, of course, for creating this environment that everyone's in. As I mentioned, I think every single person in here has contributed in some way, just by encouragement, support, always being positive, because it's not been easy flying back and forth from Sweden. A lot of times, after that 7-month mark, I actually wanted to quit because it was tough. Being here 5 days a month, and when I'm here, you have to really just maximize your time and try and do views and speak to people. So, but you guys is always encouraging, always positive, and it really helped me going. So thank you. I really mean that. My coach, of course, Carly Houston, my mentor that I didn't do, but we're going to make it up. It was really bad. Mark, Amjad, and you guys, and Mandy as well, personally, because you guys really assisted me when I needed some help with a few things, so appreciate that. And that's it. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.